This video has been made with the purpose of education and awareness of real crimes, and there is no disrespect intended to anyone. This is to help promote truth and justice for anyone who has been a victim of crime. What I'm about to report is what I have researched online, and I will welcome any corrections should they be required. Firstly, before you watch this, there is a dog barking in the background, and I didn't realise that it would be picked up on my microphone, and unfortunately I couldn't edit all of them out, so apologies there, but let's carry on with the video. Hey little berry true crime fans, Eri Berry here. Hope you had a great Easter weekend. I'm actually filming this over the Easter weekend, but it's probably going to be out in the next week after this or so. I have just today published the Hatton Garden heist video. I'm really proud of that one because I was going to focus purely on really dark stuff, like murders and stuff. I'm pleased that nobody got killed during that one, so it's not like it's dark and macabre that way, but it's still a crime nonetheless. This is a true crime channel, and sometimes we do have to go to really dark places, and sometimes the reality of those dark places are so traumatizing, they're so difficult, and to the point that sometimes trying to create a false narrative or a false reality is way better than reality itself. It's a coping mechanism, self-preservation, a buffer between your vulnerabilities and the world. I'm all for having a fantasy land like I did when I was a kid. I used to sort of like pretend I was in an enchanted forest when I was actually just in my back garden. That's healthy, that's fine. But when you start to purport that what isn't true is true, that's called a lie. Particularly if you are telling other people an untruth and expecting them to believe it to the detriment of either them, you, or someone else. But if you are lying to get away with things, lying to... Sometimes people say they lie to make other people happy or protect other people. Understandable to a certain degree, but coming clean at the right opportunity, or better yet, not lying in the first place, can save a huge amount of trouble. Now, I'm not going to reveal who this person is, but I know and have known for a long time someone who is a habitual liar. Now, I'm not going to use the term pathological lying to describe them. They've not been diagnosed. But when I look into true crime cases and I see things like Sarah, the woman who was on the Dr. Phil show who lied about having cancer, and the subject of this particular video, and others like Jodi Arias, Dalia DiPolito, for example, that's a different kind of lying. Now, the person I know was someone who had a hell of a lot of trauma in her life, to the point that she would lie about things that she had absolutely no reason to lie about. She wasn't in trouble for anything. She wasn't being accused of doing things wrong. In some cases, people just said to her, look, I saw you there, at this place, or I saw you in the supermarket, or whatever, and she would say, no, I wasn't. And sometimes she would openly accuse other people of lying just to save face. And sometimes you're thinking, why are you saving face? There's no trouble here for you. And sometimes she did do things wrong, and she would lie about it, and she'd lie and she'd lie and she'd lie. She had no problem whatsoever landing anyone else in the crap. And only when, after hours sometimes of interrogation, would she eventually admit it. But the way that she would do it is, I noticed she would barely speak. Like if you said to her, you were there, weren't you? And eventually when she'd admit it, she'd go, yeah. Almost like trying to stop the truth coming out, but at the same time can't hold it back. But there are some people who lie and lie and lie to the point that they not only elaborate and embellish their lies, they fabricate evidence. They accuse other people of doing horrific things. And why do they do it? Either for gain, to make themselves look better than they actually are, because either they can't face the reality of who they are, or they can't face reality itself, and they want to maintain this persona not only to themselves but to the outside world, or it's to maintain a huge web in which they've caught themselves. And that's what happens with lies. It's a bit like, with Pinocchio with the nose growing. A lie grows and grows until it becomes as plain as the nose on your face. And you end up looking so stupid, not because of the original thing about which you're lying, but the fact that the lie has gone on and on and on. It's the classic snowball going down the hill. And coming clean and saying, look, yeah, I did it. I mean, no matter what the act, no matter how heinous the act, if someone puts their hands up and says, yeah, I did it, they either admit what they did was despicable and wrong, or they say, I don't see anything wrong with what I did, and yeah, I did it. That to me is no, not right. But at least they admit it. That's the thing about crime. It's not just about the crime. It's the web of lies, the cover-up, the false evidence, the conspiracies, people who know but don't say anything, people who know and say something and there's repercussions for them. The fear of speaking the truth. If everybody who committed a crime was absolutely upfront and honest and owned up straight away, then the world would be a much more peaceful place, because then we would know exactly what to do with those people. I have no doubt whatsoever that the person who we are going to talk about today spun their web of lies in order to evade punishment, disownment, and probably to avoid her own disappointment in herself, maybe. This person spun some pretty terrible, terrible lies that eventually got her into a situation where she felt there was only one way out. This is how lies can result in crime, or crime results in lies. This is the story of Jennifer Pan. Hann Pan was originally born in Vietnam. He had emigrated to Canada, where he met his wife, Bich. Hann and Bich moved to Canada as political refugees independently of one another. Hann was in 1979, and I believe Bich was not long after that. They married and they lived in Toronto and moved to a place called Scarborough. They came to Canada with virtually nothing, so they worked hard, really hard. They both worked at a car manufacturing company. I believe Hann's role was to spray paint the cars, and Bich would make car parts. At the time of this incident, the Pan family were living in a place called Markham in Ontario. They lived in quite a nice house in quite a nice area. The Pans had really saved up. They were so frugal with their money, to the point that Bich actually drove a Lexus ES300 and Hann drove a Mercedes-Benz C-Class. The Pans were absolutely dead set on their children succeeding in life. They wanted them to get to the top of a really good profession. And when their children came along, Felix and Jennifer, they pushed these kids. Children are not perfect, because nobody is perfect. Because children particularly make mistakes, because that's the age you are when you're starting to learn how to live in the world. And quite often, mistakes are repeated. Sometimes lessons can be really difficult to understand and learn, but that's the time to make mistakes when you're a kid. And to expect your children to be perfect at home, perfect at school, perfect every single place of their lives, and not allow them simple pleasures like playing out with friends, or when they get old enough, allowing them to even date people as they become legal adults. That's really oppressive. And yes, children are your responsibility until they're adults, but they're not your property. That's one thing I can't stand about some parents who think that the children need to make the parents look good. Jennifer Pan was born on the 17th of June in 1986. Such was Jennifer's strict upbringing that her parents had to take her to and from not only school, but all of the extracurricular activities that she had. And they also didn't allow her to partake in anything that they believe would distract her from her goal of making it in the world of academia or the extracurricular activities. She didn't even get to go to a high school prom. She had never been to a nightclub. She'd never been to a pub. She had never been out drinking, nothing like that. Hann and Bich wanted Felix and Jennifer to get straight A's at school And they both did extracurricular activities. And Jennifer in particular, she was a very talented figure skater. She practiced hours and hours and hours. She was also an award-winning pianist. The Pans were very religious. They were Catholic, and Jennifer actually went to a Catholic secondary school. She also played the flute, so she was very musically inclined, as well as to do with her figure skating. So music was a huge part of her life. Sometimes it doesn't matter how well you try. Your teachers don't see your behavior or your attainment as being worthy of an A grade. Sometimes it's a B or a C. And sometimes it doesn't matter how well you are in school. Sometimes if a teacher doesn't like you, which sometimes happens, they can sometimes give you really bad grades. And to expect A's across the board is so hard for anybody, particularly children like Felix and Jennifer, who had all these expectations of them to do really, really well outside of school as well as in school. It sounds to me, when I've read about what the parents put these kids through, it sounds so exhausting that often they were up till midnight, early hours doing their homework because they had so many extracurricular activities to go to. However, when she was 14, unfortunately, a knee injury saw an end to Jennifer's Olympic dreams as a figure skater. She was that good. She really was talented. So her parents basically said, well, you know, you've got to do really well in school. I mean, they already said that, but they pushed her even more to not only succeed at school, but Hann had decided for his daughter what she was going to do with her life. Like he said to Felix, with Felix, he wanted Felix to be a car designer. He didn't want Felix to help manufacture the cars like he and his wife did. He wanted Felix to be the one designing the cars. And as far as I know, Felix did embrace this. He did do really well. And with his parents' financial support, he did go to a really prestigious college and he was studying car design. However, with Jennifer, she wasn't doing quite so well. She wasn't doing badly at school. She really did try, but sometimes it doesn't matter how hard a child tries, and that's all they can do. Just try their best. As long as you're trying, you can't always guarantee success. As long as you try, sometimes certain subjects you just never grasp. There are certain things you're never going to be good at. And if you make one mistake, you've made a mistake, and sometimes it can cost you a grade, but at least you can say you tried and you've learned from a mistake, because if you're succeeding all the time, what are you going to learn? That the only way is down. And if you keep having that expectation of perfection put on you, you're always going to expect perfection from yourself. And if you don't live up to it, it's going to cause a huge amount of problems in your life. Hann had already decided that Jennifer was going to become a doctor, but Jennifer was quite squeamish. So she said, I really cannot do that. So he said, fine. You can become a pharmacist then. It's in the same kind of profession. It's still a very respectable career. So he was willing to financially support his daughter. Jennifer said that she had graduated high school, but she didn't have a graduation ceremony. That seemed a bit strange, but at the same time, she showed them her diploma. You know, she showed proof that she had graduated high school, and all of her report cards showed A's. But what her parents didn't know was all of these had been forged. They'd been forged pretty well. She had cut out old copies of previous report cards, which did have A's on them, and she managed to glue and photocopy them onto her future report cards. Turned out that Jennifer never did graduate high school, but the lies didn't stop there. Jennifer actually received an offer from a very prestigious university, Ryerson University, but when they found that she failed calculus, they actually withdrew their offer. She pretended to attend Ryerson University, and she later pretended to have won a scholarship to a pharmacological course at the University of Toronto. She fabricated so much to maintain the lie that she was attending this college. She bought textbooks, she bought notepads and all kinds of stationery, and she even made fake notes to show her parents that she was studying pharmacology. She'd tell her parents that she was going to be living on campus or sometimes off campus with a friend because it was easier to do that than be taken to and from college every day. So her parents would take her to and from college. In reality, though, Jennifer had been in a relationship with a fellow student of hers called Daniel Wong. Apparently, Jennifer met Daniel when she was practicing flute and had an asthma attack. It was Daniel who managed to help her by calming her down so that she would get through the effects of this attack, and she actually credited Daniel with saving her life. They fell in love. They were inseparable. But Jennifer's parents forbade her from ever seeing any boys. They didn't even want her to have friends. To them, friends were, they were detrimental to her life. They would never have approved of Daniel Wong, but they had to keep their relationship secret. And all the time she was faking this college education, she even faked having a scholarship to a particular pharmacology course. And she said she was volunteering at a centre for sick children. That's as much as she actually lied. That Daniel Wong, he got sick of this sneaking around. He didn't appreciate the fact that she apparently didn't love him enough to say to her parents, look, I don't want to do this anymore. I want to be with my boyfriend. That she was quite happy to live a double life with her parents. And in a sense, she lived a double life with him because she was maintaining this lie to her parents, going to huge lengths to do this, which of course would take her away from time spent with her boyfriend. She also worked in a restaurant and gave private piano lessons to gain some money. Danny eventually broke off his relationship with Jennifer. Now, this was the point where she could have said, okay, fine, I will just carry on with the lie of the education and just focus on that. But no. She did something absolutely, truly despicable. And I cannot believe the lengths that she went to do this. Danny Wong ended up seeing another woman. Jennifer claimed that this woman was hassling her to leave Danny alone. Jennifer then claimed to Danny that 3 men broke into her house, gang raped her, and then she received a bullet in the post, which was apparently from Danny's new girlfriend, and these 3 men had been sent by Danny's new girlfriend to threaten Jennifer to stay away from Danny or to not contact Danny again. Yet Jennifer didn't feel threatened or frightened enough not to tell Danny this. But it worked. Danny believed her to the point that he dumped his new girlfriend and he went back to Jennifer. Her plan worked. But like all lies, they come out in the end, especially when they're this elaborate. Bich was actually quite suspicious of her daughter because even though Jennifer was supposedly doing some volunteer work at a hospital, she didn't have any of the attire that was needed for it. She was able to produce her lecture notes, but no uniform, no proof that she was there. And her parents, they did ask for proof. Jennifer was wise to their suspicions, to the point that one day when Bich drove Jennifer to work, this volunteer workplace for sick children, Jennifer had an inkling that something wasn't quite right. So she went in to the centre and she quickly made her way through to the very back of the centre to a waiting room. And there she stayed for hours because she knew that her mother would either come looking for her or would be waiting for her. And Bich actually did that. She went in and after about half an hour or so, she went into the centre and asked about, if Jennifer did work there. And that's when she found out Jennifer didn't work there. Bich, of course, told Hann, and Hann was livid. Out of the 2 of them, Hann was the more pushy of the 2 parents. Now, this particular term has been used a lot in videos about this case, the term tiger parents, authoritarian. Bich and Hann confronted Jennifer. She was 24 years old at this time, and she had been living or at least staying with Danny Wong when she claimed to be living with a fellow student, she did come clean. She told them everything was a lie. The fabricated straight A's, the fabricated diploma, university acceptance and the pharmacology course, all of it, the scholarship. Her parents said to her she had two choices: go and live the life she wants, be with a boyfriend, not with a boyfriend, go and work in the restaurants, whatever, but she would be disowned. But if she were to go back to high school and graduate and then pursue a university education with a curfew, a 9 p.m. curfew, no access to a phone or internet, and to be under strict observation by her parents, then she could stay in the family and continue to not only receive their financial support, but she still would be considered part of the family. And being disowned, let's not forget, means you're also disinherited. Jennifer took her parents up on their offer and agreed to go back to school. She agreed to dance to their tune and do what they wanted, never see Danny again. She wasn't allowed her cell phone for a long time. She had to prove that she was on the ball with this. But Jennifer decided she didn't want to do this anymore, but at the same time, she didn't want to leave penniless and never have her parents' financial support and, oh, heaven forbid, be disinherited. Jennifer made a plan. She didn't want to wait for her parents to die eventually. They weren't terribly old at all, and they were both in good health. She wanted them to die now. She wanted that inheritance, so she didn't have to do what they wanted. She could do what she wanted with her half of the money. So through Danny Wong, who actually was a criminal, he was a drug dealer, he had connections and was able to find a few people whom he could help hire to kill Jennifer's parents for her. But Jennifer was the mastermind behind all this. She's the one who promised these people the money. She's the one who orchestrated this through Danny Wong. Apparently, this was not the first time that Jennifer had broached the subject to not Danny, but other people about having her parents killed. Jennifer calculated that she would inherit around $500,000, and she had promised $10,000. I don't know whether it was per person who was going to do this or in total to all three, because there were three people who were going to carry out this murder. She was given a burner phone so that any incriminating text couldn't be determined on her own phone, which she had at this point got back. And on the night in question, Jennifer sent a text using this burner phone to the three men who were waiting outside and said, VIP access. She then signaled with the light in her bedroom on, off, and surveillance video from a neighbor across the road showed the three men entering the house through the front door, which Jennifer had left open. So that signal of on, off of the light was to show that the door was open. At this point in the house, the only people there were Jennifer, Hann and Bich. Felix was at university. Bich was in the living room watching television, and Hann had already gone to bed. The three men burst in and immediately put the guns up against Bich, and then went upstairs to Hann's room, put a gun to his head, and demanded money. These three men took Hann and Bich down into the basement, made them kneel, put blankets over them, and shot both of them in the head. Bich was killed instantly. She didn't have a long, drawn-out death. But before she died, she actually begged them not to hurt Jennifer. She said, "Do what you want to me, just don't hurt my daughter." This all took place on the 8th of November in 2010. Late that night, Jennifer made a 911 call, and she sounded hysterical on the phone. She was putting on this act of, "There's been a home invasion. People have burst in, and I've heard gunshots." She claimed to have been tied up with her hands behind her to a banister. But she's still able to make a 911 call. Very strange. As Jennifer is making this phone call and giving them the address, she sounds really distressed. But then something happens that even Jennifer did not expect. In the distance, you can hear a man screaming. It's Hann. He is not dead. He's severely injured. He'd been shot in the head. How many people survive being shot in the head? Not many. He was screaming. He was running out of the house. His screaming died down. Jennifer was calling out for him. By the time the police and the emergency services got there, Hann was in such a critical condition, obviously was taken to hospital, and he was put into an induced coma. It wasn't known whether he would genuinely survive. Jennifer was the only key they had to what happened here. She told the police her version, that she was upstairs in her room on her phone talking to a friend when she heard some movement in the house, and somehow she knew this wasn't her mum and dad. She was then taken at gunpoint to other places in the house, and she fished out, I think, $2,500 from a drawer, and $1,100, she was very specific about that, $1,100 from her mother's purse. The police questioned her about this, is how did you know that your mother had literally $1,100? She told the perpetrators that that's how much her mother had in her purse, and she said it's because that's how much her mother had taken with her when they were at the US border. They had a US and Canadian currency. She then claimed that her wrists and her arms had been tied together and to the banister using a shoelace, but it was her own shoelace from her own shoe. So these perpetrators had not brought anything with them to restrain her. What was puzzling as well is, why were these two people taken down to the basement and shot and not Jennifer? How was she able to make the phone call from her cell phone while she was tied, not only her wrist tied together, but also her arms tied to the banister? She did manage to demonstrate in the police interrogation how she was able to do this, because the police were a bit iffy about that, but she did actually manage to demonstrate that she had the phone in her back pocket and she was able to twist her arms round and put it on loudspeaker. That seemed kind of plausible. However, Hann came out of his coma, and not only was he alive, he had a very clear memory of that night. He was able to communicate, and he was able to detail exactly what had happened that night. And it was nothing like what Jennifer had told the police. Hann said that he knew that Jennifer was in cohorts with these people when they came in, because she was immediately standing side by side and being friendly with them, chatting to them. They called her by her first name. And when the police listened to the 911 call, it made sense, because even though this 911 call was made after the perpetrators had allegedly left, when Hann was screaming, Jennifer was screaming back at him, saying that she was calling 911, but Hann wasn't responding to her. He was trying to get away from her. The police confronted Jennifer, and after a long interrogation, she did change her story. But she didn't come clean. Lying is what Jennifer does. Even to this day, this new narrative, which I'm about to tell you, is exactly what she sticks to even now. She says that she was so depressed that she wanted to die. She wanted to end her life, but had been unsuccessful in her multiple attempts to do so. How, I don't know. So she decided to hire people to invade her home and kill her. So she wanted to commit suicide, but wanted someone to do it for her in this very showy and spectacular way, which of course the police didn't believe. Particularly as Danny Wong came clean straight away. He told the truth. The 3 hitmen were also arrested. Their names were Lemford Roy Crawford, Eric Sean Sniper Carty, and David Milvagnum. These are all associates of Danny, although Carty and Milvagnum were actually associates of Lemford Roy Crawford. Jennifer pleaded not guilty, and she, as I said, she stuck to this new lie of a staged suicide that went wrong. They did the wrong thing. They killed her parents and not her. Danny testified against Jennifer. 2 of the hitmen pleaded not guilty. 1 did plead guilty for conspiracy to commit murder, and another one was actually convicted of murder. Jennifer was convicted of conspiracy to commit murder as well. Jennifer Pan will be eligible for parole after serving 25 years at a minimum, but whether she will actually get out is another thing altogether. But when she gets out, life isn't going to be great for her, not only because of the fact that she's committed this horrific crime, and that's going to make life difficult for her from that point on. She also has a court order against her, which has forbidden her from contacting her father and her brother again. Her father and brother, I believe they either lived together or very close together. Felix, I mean, he's lost his mother. You know, did Jennifer ever think about her brother while this was going down? What about him? Felix is extremely depressed, and Hann is extremely depressed. He's lost his wife, and he's obviously suffering from acute PTSD. And his own daughter did this. Big Hann's funeral was held on the 15th of November 2010, and she was finally laid to rest on the 19th of November. Unfortunately, Hann Pan could not attend the funeral, of course, because he was in an induced coma, but his wife's murderer, their daughter, was able to attend. At this point, she wasn't an official suspect, so she was free to attend. Yet at this funeral, she was observed at trying to cry, pretending to cry, and at most of the time had a blank face, showed no emotion whatsoever. He and Bich, yes, I appreciate the way that they parented their kids. I don't agree with. I don't think it's healthy. They didn't deserve this. And no matter what they put Jennifer through, she didn't have to lie. And she certainly didn't need to cause this much carnage. She did not need to kill anybody. Yes, it may be the childhood trauma that caused her to live this life of lies and spin this web. But it was her choice to do what she did. It was her choice to say yes to her parents, to going back to school. She could have said, no, I'm going, I'm off. Yes, it's horrible to be disowned. It's horrible that parents would do that. That, to me, is despicable. But at least she'd be free. At least she wouldn't have to live any more lies. At least she wouldn't have to dig herself deeper. At least her parents would be alive. At least her mother would be alive, and Hann wouldn't have to live with this. I suppose he's probably got survivor's guilt. And Felix has lost his mum. He's lost his sister. His sister wasn't the person he thought she was. If you can lie so extensively about things like this, such as fabricating evidence of a bullet being posted to you, and openly accusing people of doing things that are criminal. Honestly, I don't understand. Really, I don't. When you deliberately mislead people and deliberately bring people down in order for the world to yield to your personal utopia, that's wrong. Because in Jennifer's reality, she has her parents' money and they're not there anymore. The kind of relationship that she had with her parents was one of approval. And now this relationship with her father is absolutely severed, completely. She's completely disowned, completely disinherited. And also she has another court order saying that she is never to contact Danny Moore again. So she's lost everything. Lies can cost you everything. And yes, sometimes admitting the truth means that you admit that you did something wrong for which you need to pay the punishment. Sometimes denying it and denying it and denying it, you're hoping that the more you deny it, it will actually put you in the clear, but it doesn't. One of the cases that really fascinates me, but makes me so angry and infuriated as well, as the one of Dalia Dipolito. Michael Dipolito said something at the sentencing which really stuck with me. He said if she had owned it, he would respect that. If she'd owned up, if she said, yeah, I did arrange someone to kill you, yeah, because I wanted your money, you know, if she just said I've done it, that would give her a lot more respect. And it's never too late to admit it. Like when Jennifer's parents found out about her lies, she did come clean. She admitted what happened. That was her point, to start afresh. She could either have done what her parents wanted. I mean, for them to financially support her through an education, maybe she could have gone ahead with that. Or she could have said, look, this is my life. I want to live it. I'm sorry that I'm not doing what you want me to, but I'm off. This is my existence on this planet and I'm going to own it myself. Having your dignity and your freedom, I mean, that's really ironic because she didn't have much freedom at home with her parents, and now she really doesn't have much freedom because she's in prison. Right now, Jennifer is actually serving her sentence at the Grand Valley Institution for Women in Kitchener, Ontario. Danny Wong is now at the Collins Bay Institution in Kingston, Ontario. Milvagnum at the Atlantic Institution in New Brunswick. And Crawford was at Kent Institution in British Columbia. Carty had also served at the Kent Institution, but he actually passed away in his cell on the 26th of April in 2018. If you've done something wrong, even if you don't think it's wrong, if you know that it's wrong and illegal, just admit it. Please, just say you did it. That will gain you so much more respect. Because it's not always just about what you do, it's the lies, because you dig yourself in deeper, because you show yourself to be not only someone who is capable of a crime, but someone who is deceptive and manipulative. And that does not paint you in good light. And when eventually you do come clean and speak the truth, people don't believe you. Even if this were, you know, one of the most abusive households in the world, it does not give the child any excuse, any reason to do this to their parents. If you're in a position where you're being abused or victimized, or your freedom and your liberty has been taken away from you, as soon as you get the opportunity to be free, be free. So when Jennifer was given that option to go, she should have gone. At least she would have lived her life on her terms. And now she is under ultimate lock and key, under the ultimate curfew of prison. So that's it for this case then, guys. Thank you so much for watching. I will always ask people to leave me case suggestions. I've got a nice bank of them that I'm going to be working through. I don't want to give any spoilers to the next ones or anything. I'm on Twitter, Facebook, and on Instagram. Come and say hello. Hit me up in the comments. I may well be going back to my main channel and be doing some vlogs there. But to be honest, I want to focus my energy more on this channel. I would very, very humbly ask if anyone if you could please just shout me out on social media, because the more people know about this channel, the more people will come here. I really, really, really want to get to the golden 1,000 subscribers by the end of the year. According to Social Blade, I will get there, but you never know. But anywho, thank you so much. I really, really appreciate you watching so far, and I hope to see you again in the next one, little berries. Bye.